Hi, and welcome to Podcasting 101 with Rachael. This podcast is for busy female entrepreneurs who run their own businesses and want to start a podcast, or who may already have a podcast. I want to share practical information and tips on how you can get your podcast started and managing it along the way. I'll also be interviewing other female podcast hosts to give you real insight into what it's like having your own podcast. Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode. Today I have my lovely client, collaborator and friend, Hannah McCormick. She is a marketing coach and consultant and host of the Showing Up Solo podcast. Hannah's podcast has been going for about 2.5 years now and has, at the time of recording, 65 episodes published. So I'd say it's a pretty established show, and Hannah is a pretty established podcaster. I wanted to talk to Hannah a little bit more in depth about her podcast and how it's been working for her business. So welcome, Hannah.
Hi, Rachel. Thanks for having me on the show. Always a pleasure.
Yes, this is, I think, the third time you've been...
Third time on this show.
Yes, you did. You did appear on my first podcast, a Virtually Inspiring podcast, because we were both VAs once upon a time. And and then it was you and Nicole, your co-host when you first started out. And then your awesome marketing full circle content method. For those of you not listened, check it out. I will put a link in the show notes because Hannah has an awesome way of batching and producing your content to make it work harder for you for your podcast.
It's a shame it's not a video right now because I'm wearing my Just Go Batch It crazy shirt and everything.
I've been meaning to get some merch since it was Hannah's business birthday, this month in May 2024. And you sent out that email and I saw it about the merch, and it's something that I meant to buy and I wanted to buy. I'm going to go on there after this and buy the Batch It Crazy t-shirt because I love that one. It's my fave.
I always get compliments on it. It's my fave. It's great.
Yeah, and I've told people about it as well myself, because when I've mentioned your content, your full content circle method, and I talk about Batch It, I then always note on Hannah has awesome merch. So yeah, you should, if you're a fan of the Showing Up Solo podcast, then go and have a check out of the merch. I'll obviously leave all the links in the show notes for you. So just to get a little bit of, for people that haven't listened to your previous episodes, just a little bit about your business and also why you wanted to start the Showing Up Solo podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I started my business June 2020, following a pandemic layoff. I jumped into self-employment as a virtual assistant and had to figure out a completely new way of building clients that I hadn't been used to. I'd been used to the traditional ways of marketing yourself. But of course, mid-pandemic, everyone's locked up. You can't really, go pound the pavement or go to networking events. So I very quickly had to learn how to use things like social media and online networking events to build a client base. Long story short, the more I did it, the better I got at it. The more people started reaching out to me, not for my virtual assistant businesses, but for support doing what I was doing for my business for them. And so it wasn't long before I pivoted to offering social media management services. And the more I did it, the more I just thought, the more I fell in love with being self-employed, being a solopreneur. And the more it dawned on me that really marketing is one of the biggest barriers to people getting out there, starting a business. The fear of, well, will I ever find a client? How do I find a client? I don't know the first thing about online marketing, so I don't know if I'll make money. Maybe I should just go the safe bet, go work for someone and know I'm going to have a steady paycheck. So at that point, I had a collaborator, Nicole, and we were teaming up on a lot of projects, and we decided that it could be really helpful to team up on our marketing as well, to create content together so that we could focus more of our energy on bigger projects. And that's when we decided to launch the podcast. it came from a need for more content. And then we're like, well, we may as well we need to do some videos for Instagram. Well, we may as well do a podcast while we're at it. And we just so happen to know an amazing podcast manager, you. So we're like, great, we don't have to figure out how to do this ourselves. We'll just get Rachel's help. And basically, I think we just reached out to you, told you what our vision was, and let you take the reins from there. We just sort of batched our content and we just sent it off to you, and you did your magic. And I've had a episode coming out every 2 weeks for now over 2 years. So,
yeah, you've been consistent there. Even when Nicole stepped down as co-host and you took over doing all the interviews and everything yourself. And I have to say, Hannah is super organized. We have a great way of working now, and I'm able to get ahead because Hannah is so organized in getting ahead with knowing with all the planning and knowing what topics you want to talk about, and always thinking about guests and potential people that can come along and offer their expertise to your podcast. And I think you've definitely hit the nail on the head with solopreneurs when they're first starting and not knowing where to go and to learn. I mean, I myself was in, the same position when I first started before we met. And you do learn so much in that first year that you're setting up on your own. But if you have somebody, I always do say to people, like, you need a Hannah in your life, because like Hannah has helped me with all of my copy and my website as well. And I just say you need a Hannah in your life. And if you don't know where you're starting, if you're listening to this podcast and you're starting your business as well, even if you're not, you get just this extra layer of advice to be able to do your marketing. And it's such an important thing that we do, to build our businesses and grow and be able to run our businesses and keep them on our own terms, like we both, want to do with our businesses. And I'm sure those of you listening want to do as well.
That was one of the big goals of the Showing Up Solo podcast, was hopefully to attract more clients and to use it as a tool for marketing the business. But also, there's just, you don't know what you don't know. So letting people, anyone who's just toying with the idea or just starting out, maybe aren't in a position to afford a coach yet. There's all this wonderful, easy to access, easy to understand. Like, we wanted it to be really accessible. Like, anyone can do this level of, of knowledge. And we want it there so that you can get started, get the ball rolling. And then when you are in a position to do so, you can bring on some professional help to just take it up to the next level. And that was always the goal with the podcast.
Absolutely. And that is what I aim to do with this podcast as well. I know that everybody can't afford to outsource their podcasts. And I want people to be able to have access to that, to be able to do it themselves. And that is my goal in bringing insights from podcasters and business owners like you and experts in and all that kind of advice that, you just have to put the time in there and look at it. But the information is all there. Going back to the beginning a little bit. So what were your biggest challenges to getting started when you and Nicole decided to introduce podcasting to your business?
Well, I mean, there was a logistical challenge. Nicole and I were both based in Canada, but in different provinces. So one of us had to get on a plane to go see the other, and being mothers of small children, not easy. So we would get together. Like, there was logistical. One of the reasons we got so organized is because we would batch 6 months worth of episodes in one shot. Of course, doing interviews over Zoom helps a lot, but it's nice to have those in-person ones as well. But in terms of the actual challenges, whilst we knew a lot about social media marketing, we knew how to promote a podcast. Neither of us had ever made a podcast before. I didn't know anything about podcasting platforms, like how to get it in, how to set up our RSS or
RSS, yeah.
RSS feeds, see?
Yeah.
I knew about SEO, but not necessarily podcasting SEO. And I just knew what to do with it, the finished product, but not how to make that product. Mm-hmm. And it would have been a huge challenge if we didn't have someone like you around. Lucky for me, you were there, and you just knew everything we needed to do, like things you don't think about, like trailers, intro and outro, yeah, there's just so many things I didn't know that I didn't know.
Yeah.
So it was helpful.
Yeah. So I think that's been a benefit then to you getting it started, is having someone there. You mentioned to me as well about accountability, and I found that's come up with a few of my other clients as well, is having that accountability to be consistent.
You are the reason that the episode has come out without fail every 2 weeks for the last 2 years, Rachel. It was not for you, and I tell this to everybody. If it was not for you, that would not be happening. My neurodivergent brain is terrible at that. If it wasn't for your little messages saying, Hannah, I've done everything, I just need this one little thing from you to hit go, it wouldn't get done. And it would be because of like this one little thing I just hadn't done. But then I get your little prompts and then I just know. I don't have to think about it. I just know it's going to come out, and it's like, I just send you the raw recordings and you're doing your magic. And I have this like awesome show coming out. It feels like autopilot, but obviously there's a lot of hard work going on.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, you've done a lot of the, the front end work with the content and the creation and everything like that. And I suppose that is the benefit of having somebody like me working with you, that you've done the creative part, you've got that interview, you've got your gold dust, and then you also have the other puzzle of the promotional side of things, which is equally important as, 3 big things: creating the content in the first place and getting, so you're delivering something great to your clients, doing the production elements of getting all those tasks and lined up, ready to go, and then the promotion so that everybody, as many people as possible get to hear your podcast going out there. Do you have any current challenges that you find coming up with your podcast? Like, I don't know, maybe thinking of different subjects to approach or things like that?
No, I think content-wise, that's not a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Like coming up with content. I tell you what, the one of the challenges, and literally the only barrier to it, is just needing the budget available. Is I know what to do with the content. Like I know I know all these ways. It's really frustrating because I know all these ways I could like maximize the content I'm creating for the podcast and like use it in so many different ways, and yet I lack the time. It's just always what comes up. I need to just like sit down and spend a month going through my back catalog of content and writing captions and graphics, or I need to get you to do it. Like it's on my list of things, is if I can increase that budget to just get you to like take the reins, because that is one of the biggest things. It feels like such a waste. These amazing episodes are coming out, and I still do my bit. Like I send my newsletters out and I send them out on LinkedIn, and that gets a lot of traction. But I know that I'm missing opportunities on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Pinterest that I was doing before when there was 2 of us to handle it. But now that it's just me, it's a little harder to balance the marketing plus the client work. So that's probably my biggest challenge right now is the podcast is doing well, but I just know it could be doing even better if I could just get my act together.
Well, I mean, I think this is a common challenge for a lot of business owners with podcasts, or just generally, even if you don't have a podcast with your marketing, is that time and the budget. So in an ideal world, if you had either more time or more money to be able to invest in it, you would be able to do so much more. But again, we can only do what we can do. I think it's great to keep, maybe a note and things of what things you think would be what you could do. So if you were able to pass off to somebody else, or find some time where you go, okay, I'm going to carve out a day. Like I know when you used to batch, a lot of you would carve out a day or your trip to carve it out to do it. I think maybe those things to keep in mind, for the future, or for, for people listening, if you're struggling to find time, it is. But I also think you shouldn't beat yourself up too much.
Yeah.
It's so easy. And I can see it myself with my podcast and, getting this out, and I want to be able to share it in lots of different ways. And I'm all, telling everybody else how to do it. And then you think, well, I actually haven't done that. But
yeah, it's the cobbler's kids have no shoes. That classic. Yeah. I would never let my clients get there. get to, I would be like, no, we're using your content. You got amazing content. I'd never let them get to the state I have, but it's, but I'm not, no, I don't beat myself up about it. But I would say if that, as someone who's now got it well established, got the pattern of the content coming out regularly, like that's down. I know you have that handled. It's now the next stage that I think like getting word out there. That's the biggest. And again, it's not a case of not knowing how. It's just a case of finding the time or the money to do it. And that's always the problem, isn't it?
I think as we just said, that's the crux or the Venn diagram of where you would like to be is the time and money.
Yeah.
As we said, you're pretty seasoned now and your podcast is going well and your business is going great as well. Like, do you have any more goals for your podcast in the future? Have you got like a vision of where you'd like your podcast to go?
Yeah. Well, actually, that's a really interesting one. I've been thinking about this for a while. We covered a lot. We have covered a lot in the show. I recently just sort of reorganized all of the episodes onto different playlists, and I took a look, and there are some categories that I thought I had like really covered, and they definitely need some more work. So that's inspired like quite a few upcoming episodes and topics to make it fully fleshed out. But I do think we're going to reach a point where the show maybe like reaches its, I don't know, it's hard to say because it's always evolving. So part of me is like really enjoying the process of podcasting and has quite a few different ideas in my head of like doing a different podcast and getting swept up in the content creation road. But the other thing I would really like to do, which would enable me to go off and do other content, is if I could get the podcast paying for itself through things like selling merchandise or Patreon. If I can get the podcast paying for itself, then I can continue to bring free education to the people I want to help, and I can continue giving this information and using this platform to benefit others while also giving me the free time to maybe pursue some other topics. Because I tell you what, Rachel, I have become a podcasting addict. I really like it.
Once you start looking at what different types of podcasts are out there, and there are so many, but there's so many different conversations going on. And I know that I have discovered a lot of diverse range of podcasts. I try to listen to as diverse a range as possible, like some that are like highly produced that come on BBC Sounds, but then some that are, I've discovered. I run a free podcast community, as you know, and meeting lots of different independent podcasters there has been so great in discovering so many different new topics to listen to. And I think there's definitely podcasts out there for everything if you wanted to learn about something, which I think is great.
Yeah, it's funny. I came up with an idea for a podcast title, and I Googled it, and there was already 2 podcasts with the same name.
Darn, got in there first.
Darn. But, obviously it was a good idea because other people have done it too.
Yeah, great minds think alike. So that's kind of monetization is something that you're looking at for the future. I know that you have started a Patreon very recently, and that has come out in your May birthday letter that I read about. So tell us a little bit more about Patreon, how you're using it for the monetization and what kind of features and things you're offering. Because I know that when I first kind of came across Patreon and different levels of monetization, I was thinking about it in very, I don't know whether linear is the right word, but in one way. And then I've discovered some other people and thought, oh, okay, they're doing it in that way, like quite out the box thinking. So I'm just interested to see your take on it.
Well, it's interesting because when we first launched the podcast back when it was Nicole and I, we actually launched it alongside a membership. And the idea was to get listeners to come into the membership. Those are obviously it's very difficult to maintain. And we happened to be launching it at a time when interest in online memberships was just kind of going down now that people could start meeting. It was early 2022. And so people were starting to be able to meet in person again. And so there was like a less interest in that. But I have had people asking, like, is there a membership? Can we get a membership? And so basically I started collecting like bonus interviews with guests for a while, just sort of seeing where it would go. And now that I've set it up, I basically tried to set it up so that it's very low, very accessible ways that people can just support the channel to like say thank you for giving me this info, and then they get like an immediate benefit of access to bonus content. They get a discount on my online courses, and then like the next tier up, you also get some free lessons, and the tier after that, you get free tech tutorials, and then like the higher the tiers go, there's access to live Q&A sessions once a quarter, and then personal like one-on-one coaching sessions, which is the higher tier one. But it's a nice way for people to kind of support the show and get something back in return. Just a key. So that's what I'm hoping to use it for. I need to start, like I literally just launched it in May. So I'm going to be I need to start posting some little tidbits to there regularly as well. But I'm excited to see how that goes. And of course, there's that community aspect too. So it'll be nice to see how that kind of goes in that less formal membership way, where it's not about having to show up live all the time, but still being available and accessible online to my community. So yeah, that's really the goal there. Yeah. And then in addition to that, then there's the merch.
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, it's fun to have to. And it's like a nice little small way that people can support the channel without like breaking the bank. You know,
yeah.
It's just like a little, hey, thank you. And then they're promoting the show for me. It's like a conversation piece.
Yeah, absolutely. I think merch is like a really good way to go. Have you limited the amount of people that can join at the higher levels, or is it as many people? Just
Not
out of interest,
just not as yet. There probably will be a limit because I'm only one person.
Yeah.
So
just the one podcast is like this sequel. Like it's a film podcast, and obviously they've got some that are higher that like I think they only have like a few spots, but they're obviously, they can have input in the show and things like that. So obviously you can't have too many people having that kind of access or voice, because you would just then be drowning in potential requests trying to be able to fulfill, honor what you have said. So that was just an interesting piece that I hadn't really
I've been watching what a lot of other people have been doing as well. There's some content creators. I do love consuming YouTube content. And so there's some content creators that I've recently been totally like, this is my little, my neurodivergent brain gets like focused on something and then just like dives deep into the bottomless pit until there's nothing left to find. And I've been looking at their various ways of doing things and how they've set up their Patreons. And yeah, they have some like really top tier offers, limited availability, but then you get like creative input to the show or like the opportunity to be featured. Yeah. I think that's incredibly
community building though, isn't it? I know it's like a, top level, but if you've got some super fans, say, in your community, and it's a way to really help bring them on and include them in the show that is, for them and you're creating it for them. I think that's a really lovely thing to be able to, opportunity for somebody if they really wanted to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I do. I think it helps. It really, you do feel part of the community. Like I've started, I started following them on all their different channels and like reading like the community tabs and exploring. I've only just started exploring Twitch. I don't know if you're familiar with Twitch, but that seems to be all about streaming too. But I think it's mostly for gamers. That's what I love about though this content creation world is there's so many ways to go with it. Like podcasting, there's like limitless possibilities, like you can make video podcasts or just audio, and you can focus on performing really well on just podcasting platforms, or performing really well, or you can supplement your podcast with other things. Like again, one of the content creators, they do like comedy skits, but they've just launched their own podcast called We Were Told We Should Do a Podcast. Like that's literally the title of it. So they've gone from like content creation to podcasting as just like a supplement to, but it's totally different to what they normally do. Yeah, I just think it's like a really interesting tool like that. I think not enough people are using as a way to build community and for business too. Like, oh my gosh. Because you're reaching, a different audience as well of people
that consume content in a different way. And I think that, and as I was listening to one of the podcast trend shows I was listening to, and it is a platform for people to get to know you on a deeper level as well. So if they have discovered you through maybe, I don't know, maybe you do business TikToks, maybe you do the stories, they've discovered you there, but they really want to get to know you better, know more about what and how you can actually help them. Then they go from that content, maybe the short form content they're consuming, and then they're going, and that's what the hope is, isn't it? They go over and then, you know, discover you on the podcast, on audio only. And then maybe they discover you've got YouTube as well, but you're doing something slightly different on YouTube. I don't know. But like you say, the possibilities are endless in the way that you could connect with your audience and then, you know, build that community and relationship with them.
There's some content creators I stumbled upon on TikTok, the Dumb Dads podcast. And
I have been seeing them.
their TikTok content is so on point and so hilarious. It's basically become my love language to my husband, because I'll just like message him a TikTok every like, pretty much every day. Every time they have a new episode, a new little video come out, I'm like, yep, send that to him because he'll get it. And it's funny because it's turned him, because he doesn't have TikTok, so he listens to their podcast now. So he listens to their podcast and I watch their TikToks, and then we meet and talk about it.
Yeah, so that's a perfect example of different people consuming different types of content, and that creating a variety of content, you know, for your business, and which can all stem from the same idea of your podcast, and then go off and create those different pieces. So you're not having to think of the idea, but you just repurposing it into different types of content that different people can consume and find you and work in a different way.
That's what I love about it, is that ability. I think that's another thing, that another element that it brings when you use it as part of like a wider content strategy. There's just so many more opportunities for you to like slide into people's lives, you know, like the drive home, like scrolling on the phone when you're on the loo, you know, like there's all, like, you know, the last thing you watch before you go to sleep that night, you know, as you're trying to wind down, and like there's all these, or the thing you pop on, like pop your headphones in for when you're walking the dog. Like there's all these ways to slide in if you can really leverage these different avenues. And like that audio only content has some really great uses. Like my husband, he can't watch videos when he's driving. He can't watch them at work, but he can listen. So he's like, that's why he's a huge podcast consumer. Whereas like I'm more likely to watch things on my phone. So I'll be more likely to watch a video of a podcast, even if it's just watching people talk, than I am to listen.
But that's so interesting. And that's part of, you know, the research that you can do as a podcaster, for your business, when you either have one already or you're starting a podcast, is thinking about the different ways in which your audience might be interacting with you and how you can utilize that for your business, and to be able to connect with those different people in a different way, but achieving the ultimate goal of bringing them into your world. And hopefully, you know, either they become a client and you're helping them, or they become a super fan and they come and recommend you, whatever the goal is.
Super fans are like, this doesn't have to just become a monetary like return, because super fans are wonderful too. They talk about you and they share, you know, I literally gave your business card out to someone I met at a network, like an event. I'm across an ocean from you. I nabbed when I saw you in person earlier this year.
I found your business card in my handbag, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, Hannah's business card!"
I have them right here. I have some of them, and I've got them, and I purposely put them in my handbag for this event. And I had a conversation with someone. I'm like, "This is my podcast manager. You need to give her a call." I don't know if they did, but like just the fact that like I like that super fan level where I'm like, this is the person you need to talk to.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that you can, those kind of personal recommendations are just everything, I think, because the same, you know, you think about when people ask for book recommendations, podcast recommendations, film ones, business, you know, when it comes from somebody you already like, know and trust, you are far more likely to take what they say or recommend on board, because you're already invested with that person. So having, not underestimating those relationships that you make with people as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like that, and again, that's the power of podcasting is that community building, that connection building, that feeling that you really know someone and you can get to like them quite quickly. I had someone pitch to be a guest and I was like, oh God, another guest pitch. But they said what they did, which was really smart, is they sent an episode where they'd been a guest and I listened to it and I only had to listen to them speak for like 2 minutes before I was like, yep, I like them. I can already tell by the way.
Was that Chelsea?
Talk. Yes. Oh my God. See? Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm listening to that episode. It's a very good one. I'm editing that one at the moment.
And I was just like, I can just tell that we're going to be great on an episode together.
Yeah.
And you know, where else would you get that kind of connect? Like, where else would you find that? You don't find that through like blog writing. I mean, you can hear someone's
No, that's
tone
true.
yeah, if they're really good at what they do, then you can like, okay, I like this person. But it's not the same. Like, you don't get that instantaneous, like, yes, we are going to vibe. Let's get on.
I love that.
Let's get on the call together. Let's just talk.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow. So everybody listening, the power. Hannah, thank you so much for sharing your insights into how podcasting has been going for your business. And I really hope that, I mean, there's lots of advice and insights there for everyone to take away. But what I'd love to leave everybody with is, I don't know if you have like, I mean, you've already offered so much advice there, but like maybe your top piece of advice if somebody is thinking about launching a podcast for their business.
Have a partner in crime. That's my advice. It is. I know it's, I say it every time, I think, but if you can get someone there to help you, it's going to be a huge help. I mean, it's going to be huge. Having some built-in accountability, having someone to bounce ideas off of, having someone to help keep you on task. Basically, get like a Rachael if you can, because like, especially if this is the first time you've done something, like I didn't know what I didn't know. And you saved me so much trial and error. I probably would have given up on the podcast if I'd tried to do it myself. Like, that's just the truth. If I tried to do this all by myself, I probably would have given up. Even if like Nicole and I decided to do it and we'd figured it out ourselves, when she left the show, I'd have given up. Like, I wondered if I had to. I think we had that conversation.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
I was like, I don't know, but having you there, having you like as like a partner, like partner in crime, has enabled the show to keep going. And it's getting to the point where like I have people say, yeah, I listened to your show. And I'm like, oh, you do? Like, not because I sent you a link. You actually listened to it. You found me. And so it's so worth it. Like you said, like 65 episodes in, like that's mad.
It's amazing. It's
like, that's
brilliant.
Crazy.
Fantastic.
We're not that far off of the 100 episodes. It's just as like,
oh my gosh. Yeah. Will it reach? I'm just trying to think. You'll have to think of something mega special to do for the 100th
I know, right?
episode.
Like I did a big 50th episode.
Oh, I wonder if it'll line up when I'm planning my holiday to Canada.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes. And then we'll just have to have like a huge,
yeah. We'll just preempt it if it's not, and then we'll just like pre-record it.
I know what we'll do. Okay, so people who don't know, there's this mountain in Vancouver called in North Vancouver called the Grouse Mountain, and there's this thing called the Grouse Grind where you have to like walk up. You basically walk up stairs up the mountain. Like you walk up the mountain on these like stairs. We'll have to do the Grouse Grind and then like do
just
a podcast,
like die
like,
on the stairs
at the top
all the
of
way
the mountain.
Dragging all balloons and cupcakes with us all the way.
Exactly. And then we can take the gondola back down.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say I can't ski. I hated it when I went.
Oh no, I can't ski either. We'll do it
that's fine.
We'll do it in the summer. It's lovely. There's lumberjacks at the top too in the summer. So
awesome. Well, you heard it here first, guys. That's what's going to happen on Showing Up Solo for the 100th episode.
Maybe we'll have to have like a big subscriber count, and then big celebration or whatever. But we'll do like a big, podcasting 101 meets Showing Up Solo.
Yes. I love that. Yeah. Well, Hannah is definitely a long-time collaborator of mine, like I mentioned. I love us working together and collaborating together on projects and stuff. So it's been so great being in each other's worlds. And thank you so much for coming on again and sharing your insights. And I'm sure you will be hearing from Hannah again because she has so much to give. And lastly, where do you hang out the most? I will leave all the links and how to get in contact with Hannah in the show notes. But if people really want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah, so showingupsolo.com is the website. You can find our YouTube content at our channel, which is at Showing Up Solo. I'm also at Showing Up Solo on Instagram. But where I have been spending a lot of my time most recently is LinkedIn. I'm really enjoying releasing a bi-weekly newsletter with every episode that comes out. And I'm really enjoying hanging out on LinkedIn. Again, at Showing Up Solo or Hannah McCormick. But yeah, we're there. We're on TikTok, but we've got to improve our TikTok and of course Patreon and everything. But pretty much Showing Up Solo.
I'll put the Showing Up Solo everywhere, nice and simple. And yeah, I'll put the details for Patreon in the show notes as well, and for the merch, obviously. And hopefully, I will get my batshit crazy t-shirts soon.
When you come to Canada, I promise I'll get we'll have a custom shirt made for the event. Okay,
that would be so awesome.
We'll get a custom Showing Up Solo Podcasting 101 merch.
Yes,
it's exclusive. That will limited time release.
That would be awesome. So watch out for that in the next 2 years.
Yeah, keep your eyes peeled.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Hannah, and thank you everybody for listening. And if you haven't already subscribed, I would love for you to hop on over to your favorite podcast app and subscribe so you hear when the next 2 episodes are coming out. So thank you, Hannah, and we'll catch everybody soon. Thanks for listening to the show. If you'd like to connect with me or get in touch, then head on over to my website. If you liked the episode, then I'd love it if you could leave me a review in your chosen podcast app. Your feedback is much appreciated. See you next time.